After such a talented and deep 2023 cornerback class, what does 2024 have to offer? Is there a solidified CB1 or CB2? Or is it just a field and we won't find out for months until the college football season? We'll discuss all of it next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. And I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And as you know, the champ is here with me, as he always is, Monday through Friday. My boy, Keith Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man. And like DP says, what? 2019 national champ. Yes, those LSU Tigers, man. But you know why we're here? We're here to bring championship level content surrounding the NFL draft. You know how we say it, man. The draft don't stop, right? If you're looking to have a good team, you need the draft, man. The draft don't stop. So this is 24/7, 365, man. We're continuing our introductory series, right? And today, DP, we talk about one of my favorite positions, man, to watch, to analyze, to go through, maybe because I was at DBU, right? We're talking about those cornerbacks with DP. This class, and you hinted at it in the intro, right? This class has been rather interesting because I feel like going into the 2022 draft, we knew Derek Stingley, right? We knew that was CB1. Going into this year's draft, right, we knew about a good bit of these guys, and it was no – there was no almost, I don't say guesswork, right? But I feel like with this class, there's a lot of guesswork. Like if you ask somebody who is cornerback one, you're liable to get 10 different names. So DP, when we're talking about tier one, right? Because we're talking about tier one players or, you know, just those more popular names. Who are some guys that maybe you've gotten eyes on, you've seen, you've heard the chatter about, you think is an intriguing prospect when we're talking about these tier one of corners, because it's fairly up in the air and it hasn't been like that for years.
No, Keith, it hasn't. And this we've gone through a couple different positions, but this is the position I think that literally is unknown in terms of who's in it and what's around it. And it is the cornerback group. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is Alabama's Kool-aid McKinstry, Keith. Like a guy that has the height, the weight, the arm length, the athleticism. And I remember just watching him on tape, you know, as I was watching like Eli Ricks, you know, the times that he played and some of the other receivers in the SEC. And I was thoroughly impressed with Kool-aid McKinstry. You know, he and you know, per like PFF, like looking at their analytics in terms of man coverage, he was one of the best man-to-man corners in coverage in all of college football last year. A young man that was literally like shut down, locked down in man-to-man coverage. You know, someone that I feel like he may be more press man-to-man heavy than a guy that's going to be more like how we saw. I think the 2023 draft, Keith, I think we talked about it. That was a lot of big kind of zone corners, cover three kind of guys. To me, Kool-aid McKinstry is he's a pure man-to-man corner. And I love the process I saw from him. A guy that, you know, he's in my region now with Ohio State that I got to get eyes on, but I've heard a lot about is Denzel Burke over at Ohio State.
Yep, that's the guy that I've seen. I've kind of gotten eyes on, and I like what I see. You're talking about a guy that appears to be quick, nimble, quick-footed guy, smooth in his transitions, can make plays on the ball. And you know Ohio State, right? And you have to give them credit. I talked about LSU, but you have to give Ohio State credit as far as their you know, campaign for DBU too. You know what I'm saying? Just some of the guys, you know, the Marshawn Lattimores, the Jeffrey Okudas, and, you know, you can continue to roll out names as far as cornerbacks. So, you know that Denzel Burke, I feel like you throw his name out there and he's going to have something to say about cornerback one overall, because a lot of those boxes in which you like, and like you said, he's another guy that appears to be a man-to-man corner, a guy that you can just single him up. And then also with DP, you want to talk about some of these guys playing man-to-man. some of these guys may be nickels, right? Like they may find their value because they can be kicked inside to nickels. So I agree with you. Denzel Burke is definitely another name. But DP, I'm looking at the bottom, man, and you threw a name out there. And like, so, just to let our listeners know, man, sometimes we get caught off guard, right? I thought this was going to be a Kool-aid McKinstry and Denzel Burke conversation. But you have the name Kalen King, man. That's the cornerback from Penn State. So what do you know? What have you seen? What have you heard about Kalen King and his draft projection or just his ability to play football at a high level?
Man, Keith, like this is, 5'11", 190, good speed in terms of being able to turn around with guys. But like he's physical, Keith. Like I remember when I was watching Marvin Harrison Jr., who was my highest graded player on my board right at this particular moment. Watching him and Kalen King popped in that Penn State game. Like he battled his butt off. And Marvin Harrison is not an easy cover by any means. But then you see the ability to play off coverage. I love his click and close to be able to trigger downhill and put a stop to short routes that are developing in front of him. You see a guy that does not mind throwing his face into the fire, getting into the fray of the run game, right? And not only the run game, but you think about the quick screen game. There's a play against Ohio State where they tried to run, I think it was to Emeka Egbuka, matter of fact, and they had, I think it was maybe Cade Stover trying to block Kalen King out in space when Kalen King's playing like 7 yards off a cushion. And the identification to know what was coming and the trigger to get downhill, the ability to force a whiff block, and then to lay a boom on a form tackle, just speared him, took him to the ground. And those are things you look for. That he also can play that press man. He gets up on the line of scrimmage. He's good with his footwork. I like his punches and his process. Another guy that, you see some guys a two-hand jam all the time and they shoot the wrong hand and lock the hip and different things. Like I don't see a lot of that with him. I feel like he's much more fluid and has a good process to be able to transition. So it's a name that, to me, I think should be in that conversation. Like I say, he is 5'11", so it's like, okay, some people might knock him for that, Keith. And like I said, some people try to throw him into the nickel. But I think this is a young man that can play on the outside.
Well, that'd be rather interesting because you listed out his measurables at 5'11", 190, and that's rather interesting measurables, right? That's not necessarily prototype. It's just because I'm assuming when I hear that, I'm thinking of a thicker body corner. Like I haven't seen them, but that's what I'm thinking when you throw out the measurables of 5'11", 190. So it'd be interesting to see what he looks like, how he holds up, how he moves. And then you talk about on the other side was Joey Porter Jr., which is the exact opposite, right? You're talking about 6'3", 185 pounds. So exact opposite body type of DP. Look, we went through the tier 1 guys, but tier 2, I think this is the tier that I'm excited to talk about because some of these names are familiar to me from my days with recruiting at LSU. So there's a couple names that pop out to me that I'm like, okay, I remember these guys. We can talk about this a little bit. So coming up next, man, we're going to get into these tier 2 guys. And we're saying tier 2, but with the way this cornerback class can shake out, this can be cornerback 1 and cornerback 2. Who knows? So coming up next, let's jump into these tier 2 cornerback.
The NBA playoffs are here, and guys, make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers getting no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. And right now, the Eastern Conference Finals is going back to Boston, so you got another chance to bet on Tatum, Brown, Smart, you name it, they have it. What I love about FanDuel, you get great promotions every single day, right? Different plays that you can put in and different things that you can bet on. So I love that aspect of it. The app is safe, secure, super easy to use, guys. So you won't feel out of sorts when you're trying to navigate and make and place your bets, so forth and so on. And of course, what's better than winning money than getting paid instantly, not having to wait 3 to 5 business days, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. You don't have to wait for it. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and there's no better place to bet on the playoff action than FanDuel. So, guys, just go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Guys, we talked about like the dark horse, Keith, and he said some names, and this second tier, I guess, has a lot of names that can be invoked in here, Keith. And you talked about some of the guys that you remember from recruiting. Who stands out to you?
Jason Marshall, cornerback from Florida. I had to throw his name out there, man. Guy, you talk about really good measurables, 6'2", 6'1", 190 pounds. Was a former 5-star kid, right? Came out of the Florida area. Him and teammate Corey Collier. I think Corey Collier might have transferred to Nebraska, though. But they came in from that South Miami area. Both went to Florida. And the reason why I'm buying in also, they're getting coached by the best cornerback coach in the country. And I'm talking about college and NFL, and cornerback coach Corey Raymond for the Florida Gators, man. God, proof is in the pudding is what he's done in his time at LSU and everything else. But, man, you're talking about a guy that has the movement skills. He has the ball skills. I was able to watch a little bit of him last year, and he got just straight out competed, man. Just competitive nature. I'm expecting his technique to become more technically refined. And I'm willing to say I think he's going to push that first-round narrative going into this year. I think that's going to be a realistic thing. We talked to our guy, Ryan Fowler, right? One of the scouts with us at the Draft Network, and he already gave him a second-round grade. He's like, man, I really like some of the things this guy can do. And guess what? One of the things that his biggest concerns were stuff in the running game, right? But you know me, DP. I'm not paying my cornerback to tackle, baby. I want you to cover. I'm paying you to cover the wide receiver. I'm not paying you to tackle. If I need somebody to tackle, what's my motto? Go get the linebacker. So I like it. I don't say I'm all in on Jason Marshall, but when we're talking about invoking names, talking to our listeners, to the Locked On family, right? We're gonna talk about Jason Marshall, cornerback from Florida, as a key name that I think is gonna have something to say about everything.
Yeah, no, Keith does not care about tackling for his DBs. That's not something he's ever really worried about.
Corner, safety,
corner. Sorry, corner. Yeah, safety. Yeah. Corners. He's not worried,
baby. I'm paying you to run and cover.
Nah, I feel you on that. I'm excited too, because I remember Fowler talking about him, and I'm excited to see what this young man has on tape. I've seen a little bit of him during the season, like last year in season, but I haven't actually studied them yet. Man, I got two names, but bro, and they both at Auburn. Guys who first of all,
hey,
they scored me.
DP,
they scored me.
DP, what happened at Auburn, man? Just real quick, one minute. Auburn, you had Ike Leota, you had Kobe Wooden, you had our guy Derek Hall. Now you have two corners on here that DP is mentioning. What's going on? It seemed like that was a pretty talented defense. Was it just pure offensively was the issue? That if it was that bad that you had 5 potential top 3 round draft picks, and then offensively was that bad, that's crazy, man. They needed to make a change. Then if they made a change, because this is two corners that you mentioned in this tier. But I wanted to get that over. Go ahead, DP.
It starts with the offensive side of the ball, Keith. It starts with quarterback. It was not a very fluid and smooth situation that the Auburn Tigers were dealing with under center, man. But I studied both of these guys when we started final reports for the 2023 draft back in November of 2022, and then they both accepted. I think they accepted the invite to the Senior Bowl. And they say, no, they went back to school. And I was like, well, I just did 2 reports for nothing. DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett, man. And DJ James is more of he plays man-to-man. He played more. I feel like he's more comfortable in that off-man and zone coverage. Because he's, you look at him, you might be a little concerned with his long speed, so you don't want to put him up on the line of scrimmage against a lot of those twitchy, explosive receivers and tell him to be able to run stride for stride. But he triggers downhill well, good click and close, playing from depth. And I like that about him. Really competitive at the catch point as well. I believe his listed measurables for DJ, I believe he's 6'1", looks at 6'1", like 175. So he's got good size. But, man, one of my guys, Dame's dudes, I'm stamping it early right now, is Nehemiah Pritchett at 6'1", 180, 182. More of the athletic, of the two. And I remember sitting down with one of his defensive coaches back in December, and I was talking to him about him. And I said, man, just watching this kid, he's somebody that pops on tape as like a student of the game. Like you see it, like the communication skills, the identification, the understanding route concepts and combinations. And coach responded. He said, I'm glad you can see that. I'm glad you see that on tape. He said, because he told me, he said, every Friday before games, we would meet as a staff, as a defensive unit, and we would have players bring up, things they saw on tape. And he would always be the most detailed guy from a film study of the opposing offense. And it's like, those are the type of things that translate well, not just the skills and traits, but being able to mentally go into the film room, see what the opposing offense does well. See, he's like, man, he keys in on like third downs, their tendencies, all of those things. So I see this guy, he plays good press man coverage, got good length in the arms. Like I said, he's a little, he's like 182. 180, 182. So he's a little slim, a little slender, but we just saw 167-pound Emmanuel Forbes go top 20. Right. So I'm not really too much worried about the size, man. But this is one of my guys, Keith. I love Nehemiah Pritchett's game, and I think that he's going to be able to really showcase a lot this season, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about two more man-to-man corners, right? And that may be a theme, and I'm excited about it because everybody knows I love my man. If I was the defensive coordinator, I'm playing man on the outside and I'm blitzing, right? I'm going to get you. I'm trying to get home, trying to get pressure on that quarterback and make some things happen. So I like man-to-man corners. That's one of my things. I like man-to-man corners. Oh man, but one other name we have invoked, and now this is another bigger bodied guy, right? Like I'm not saying weight wise. I'm not saying he's 210 pounds, but he's tall and he has length. And that is Clemson's cornerback, Nate Wiggins, another guy that I was familiar with. He's from the Atlanta area. I believe he went to the same high school that Cam Newton went to. So the same high school in Atlanta, Westlake High School. A guy that we were really after. He was committed to us for a minute. So I got really familiar with this kid, man. Really good kid, A+ character. But you're talking about the length, the transitions, the smooth hips, the down the field speed. And I've watched some flashes of some things watching other Clemson players. And it's kind of like, oh man, it's like one of those like, oh man, look at Nate out there, right? And when I see Nate Wiggins, I'm like, okay, this guy can ball, right? And maybe we don't know if it's first round, a second round talent, a third round, but I think, like I said, the same way I feel about Jason Marshall, this is another name that when it comes down to it, he's definitely going to be a name that, you're going to have to invoke into the conversation. And with these corners, right, we've seen guys that, may have a second round grade that go top 20 or may have a third round grade that go in the first round or, vice versa. So we're just throwing names out there that we know that they have athletic ability combined with something we've seen on tape to be like, hey, this is a guy that deserves to be in a conversation. And I definitely feel that way about Nate Wiggins. Now, where the ceiling goes, who knows? And I think about your guy with Atlanta Falcons, AJ Terrell. And he may be similar to that as far as a body profile. He may be a little bit taller, but I'm thinking if he falls somewhere in between AJ Terrell and Julius Brents, right, you have a good football player and a good corner, and that's that fringe first round. So Nate Wiggins, man, everybody jot his name down. Nate Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson, man, can be a highly talented, really skilled football player.
No, 100%, Keith, and he's going to be very quintessential to this defense, playing good football, and especially against the likes of Drake May and got Brennan Armstrong in North Carolina State and Jordan Travis. Oh Jesus, man, Jordan Travis and
Florida State. He gonna have some guys.
Toys he got over there.
Him and Johnny Wilson, I believe they battled last year. And then now, Florida
Keon
State
Coleman
has they have Keon Coleman also. They have the tight end. So that Florida State battle is gonna be fun, man. And it's gonna be one of those where the cream gonna rise to the top. And I'm excited to see one of those matchups. And that's just a little preview to our listeners. Some of the fun things we're gonna do when college football season goes around. We're gonna talk about just pure matchups when we're talking about prospect versus prospect.
Nah, for sure. So like I said, I mean, Nate Wiggins is somebody I haven't gotten into the tape yet, Keith, but like you said, he checks the size and size box in terms of being 6'2", being a tall corner. And everything I've heard from people in Clemson, they love the kid. They love his game, and they think that he can have a really big season coming up.
Yeah, DP, look, that wraps up, I don't call it round 2, tier 2. That wraps up the second segment of cornerbacks, man. And we won't get now. What we do, right? We like to flex our muscles a little bit, go deeper, really give our family, in-depth analysis of these cornerbacks. So we're going to go into this kind of tier 3 or the third segment of cornerbacks to where it's like, hey, we may not have heard a whole lot, but we're somewhat familiar with these guys, and we want to introduce even more names because I think we counted on one of the shows, DP was like, 12 to 15 corners taken and back-to-back drafts in just the first 3 rounds. So it's a must that you got to get to cornerback 10, cornerback 11, cornerback 12 because it's all going to matter come draft season. So, man, in our introductory of the cornerbacks, we're going to continue to dive deeper into this class, throw out some more names. You'll hear some more name pulls.
Y'all know y'all know what time it is. It's time to wake up. It's time to get up. That alarm clock's going off, and it's saying that we got some sleeper cornerbacks that you need to talk that we want to talk to you about, and that you need to know. And guys, the first name that for me, for those who are watching on YouTube, you see the name pop up is Cam Hart from Notre Dame, Keith, and that was a guy that I thought he was going to come out this past draft, and he would have fit right along with the rest of those tall, long, high hip zone corners, right? Like he would have fit the narrative of the 2023 NFL draft class at the cornerback position, because that's what he is. He's a long-armed, tall, leggy zone corner that plays good cover three. He can press bail, side saddle, bail tech, and drop off and handle the deep thirds, right? And not allow routes to get behind him. But the big question for him is going to be man-to-man coverage. Does he transition well out of the contact window, being squared up when guys give the releases and everything? And can he run with the premier athletes at the position down the sideline, stay stride for stride, stay in phase, and stay hip for hip? But one thing about it, Keith, especially with a guy like him playing offense zone, if he's playing the cover three or cover four, if he's even that kind of flat defender like cover six or cover two, with his height and his length, because I believe he's listed like 6'3", 6'4", Keith, with a guy like that, 6'2", I'm sorry, but he's got the long arms. But when you look at a guy like him, it's like, all right, that's a hard defender to get the ball over the top of, because he can jump. He does have decent speed as well, so he's got enough athleticism to where if he is that squatter playing that half-man technique, he's playing the high-low read, and he's in the middle, he's a guy that you got to be wary of trying to fit the ball and float it over the top of his head. I'm interested to see how this season goes for Cam Hart.
Yeah, I agree, because he was somebody last year, right? And this is when we were doing the Talent Factor podcast that we mentioned, as part of those top 10 corners that we were checking out. And like you said, he's easy to profile because we've just seen a bunch of those corners in this past draft, right? A bunch of those guys that we may want to put in cover three, those things like that, but they have the big bodies, they have the length, things of that nature. So I agree with you. Cam Hart is definitely a name that people are going to have to pay attention to. And if he's able to make plays on the football and give you that kind of ball hawk feeling towards what he does, then he's definitely somebody, that his stock is going to continue to elevate. DP, I want to go with another name pool, man. And this is a guy that I know is all the way off the radar. He's had some injuries. He's at Florida also. But he kind of plays that nickel position, smooth feet, quick transitions. Every word that I've gotten from people at Florida is like, man, look, if this guy stays healthy, he can ball. And that is cornerback from Florida, Jaden Hill. Like, remember the name. He can definitely play football. He's, like I said, smooth in transitions. I think it was 3-star kid coming out from the state of Alabama. But he's just been injured, man. I think he had a torn ACL. He was having a really good camp, man. Torn ACL, trying to battle back from injury. So if he stays completely healthy, DP, I don't know if this is going to be a first rounder, second rounder, it may be a third rounder, right? But I'm assuming when we're talking about playing the nickel position, he's probably going to be one of the better nickel corners in this draft class from what I've seen as far as his body profile and what he does on film.
That's definitely, Keith. What do we always say on this show? We Steph Curry, we Damian Lillard, we pulling up from 40. That's a name I truly have not heard of, Keith. So I'm glad you brought it up, because now it's a name that I'm going to put on my radar of a guy to watch it. And we talk about guys to watch. In my region, Shaheem Battle from North Carolina State, 6'2", 200 pounds, so gives you that prototypical size, Keith, and a guy that has deep, good speed. Right, when you're close to 200 pounds, 4'5", 4'4", to 4'5" is good enough. But God, I think when you watch him, he has fluid hips to be able to turn and run with receivers. And I think he's somebody that also can play that press man and be physical at the line of scrimmage. And then in the ACC, man, he's going to see a lot of different receivers, like you talked about with Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, Antonio. I think it's Antonio Williams over at Clemson. There's a lot of. Clemson got a lot of underrated, unknown receivers, but the ACC is going to throw the football, so he's going to get tested, and that's the biggest thing. They got Riley Leonard, who's the quarterback over at Duke, who can sling the thing, man, and not only sling it, he's going to have enough weapons to be able to showcase his talent. So for Shaheem, I'm really excited to get into his tape for summer scouting and really see what he brings to the table, as well as another guy at Clemson, another guy in the ACC is Sheridan Jones, 6 foot, 190. Someone that like I said, being in the Clemson area. I heard a lot about him. People really like him and like his game. Questions, I think the biggest question about him is like athleticism. So I'm excited to tap into his film and really see what he offers and what he brings, what style player he is, and then of course report back to the family and let them know what to expect from this young man closer we get to the season.
Yeah, also I want to throw one other name, and this name is kind of like what I did yesterday, right? Where I brought up Jack Sawyer as the last name, and I was like, this is the last, but he is not going to finish in that way. And another intriguing player, and we're going back to Alabama, Terrion Arnold. So a guy that played safety, but it appears that he's moving down to the corner position, which is the opposite of what we usually see, right? We usually see corners go to safety, but he's played more corner at Alabama than what I expected. And if he's able to put stuff together, because he's talking about a guy with high athletic ability, obviously Alabama recruit him, so the athletic ability is there in some sort of the nature. But I think now he's going to be starting. They've had kind of a loaded room, especially loaded safeties and nickel type situations, right? The past year with Brian Branch and Jordan Battle and DeMarco Helms, all of those guys are out of there, right? That's 3 starters that have been, name etched in stone, right? That they're going to get a lot of significant snaps over the past couple of years. So it's going to free up more for Terrion Arnold to play. I'll be interested to see if he plays nickel, right? Or is he playing safety, or is he playing outside corner? Because last year he played a lot of outside corner, something I didn't expect, but I wonder if they're going to move him now into that nickel position. And now we're talking about another nickel corner that can play on the outside also. And there's value in there, right? There's value, and we think about the way that the NFL game is changing and how NFL teams value that because of everything that happens with the RPO action and stuff like that. So definitely kind of circle that name because we know he's going to be on primetime TV, right, at Alabama, and the players are going to be there for him to make a name for himself. So could be a potential fast riser cornerback from Alabama, Terrion Arnold.
Definitely keep my eyes on him, man. But guys, as always, we appreciate y'all. We always tell you, go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts and get the latest episode as soon as it's available. We thank y'all so much for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday. You are our family, but also, as always, you are the everydayers, and we appreciate y'all. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow. Tomorrow episode, we're gonna tap into the offensive line. We actually got somebody requested that we don't forget about the O-line, the big boys on the front and Keith. We got a battle for OT1 that we got to get into, man. So
I have a name that I'm throwing in that offensive tackle.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a name I'm throwing in there. Nobody's talking about him, and I'm throwing his name in there.
Let's go. I can't wait for it. Listen, we're going to show them big boys some love, man. But in terms of Twitter, you can follow Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.